It is the third Sunday of Advent, and we've lit the pink candle this morning, which is pink, in case you were wondering, because this is often called Gaudete Sunday, which means rejoicing. Gaudete is the Latin for joy or rejoicing. And so because I am going to preach about joy today, I am going to turn it back on you all and ask, what are the things that bring you joy? Where or how do you experience joy? What comes to mind when I ask that question?
Puppies and 2-year-olds.
Puppies and 2-year-olds.
Grandsons.
I'm with family.
Family.
Dark chocolate, hot chocolate with marshmallows melted.
Dark chocolate, hot chocolate with marshmallows melted. We want to make sure that the people on Zoom can hear.
Sunsets.
Sunsets. Laughter. To me feels like joy. Amy's amazing boys. They agree.
Friends.
Work in my wood shop.
Friends, work in the wood shop, meaningful work.
Cats.
Cats, pets in general,
Cats.
joy.
Sunday afternoon, walking out across the fields to see the crops.
Walking out on the crops on Sunday afternoon. Thank you. We're gonna have another opportunity to do a little more thinking about joy and maybe sharing some of that a little bit later. One of the silly things that came to mind as I was thinking about this sermon this week was a song that I think I learned at camp when I was small. Maybe you know it. It goes like this. Oh, be joyful, oh, be jubilant, put your sorrows far away. Come rejoice and sing together this happy day. And this song was always delightful to me because, one, it could be sung in a round, and rounds were always fun. And maybe another time we can try it. And I also loved and still love. So one of the things that we would do is we would consonant swap the words. So it would sound like this. O ye boyful, o ye jubilant, soot your porrows off away. Run key joyce and tings together this happy hey. So very silly, very delightful to me as a child, and honestly, it still kind of delights me. And that thinking about delight put me in mind of the author Ross Gay, who wrote a book a few years ago called The Book of Delights. And this was his practice as an African-American writer in troubling times. He was writing this sort of after the Black Lives Movement was getting going, and it was his practice of documenting an instance of delight each day of his life with a short essay. He's a poet, but in this, it was sort of a short poetic essay each day over the course of the whole year. And not every essay is included in the book, but it does sort of span the year. He also has a book, a more recent one, called Inciting Joy. And I was remembering an interview that he had given back in January on NPR, or sometime at the beginning of the year. So I looked it up, because I wanted to remember what he said when he answered the question the interviewer asked, which was, how do you see the difference between delight and joy? And he recalled, so I'm kind of like multiple layers here, he recalled something that he had heard Zadie Smith write in an essay called Joy. So I looked up that essay, and Zadie Smith begins in her essay in the New York Review of Books. She says, the thing no one ever tells you about joy is that it has very little pleasure in it. The thing no one tells you about joy is that it has very little real pleasure in it. So Smith goes on to talk about her experience of parenting, at that time a toddler, in which there are moments of delight, but ultimately it's tiring and hard and frustrating. And I think the same might be said about many endeavors that we sometimes find delightful, but are very difficult. Creative endeavors, farming, parenting, being a grandparent, writing, painting, quilting. It can be delightful, but sometimes it's hard. But it also brings deep satisfaction and joy. My little song that some of you clearly knew, the words say, be joyful, be jubilant, and put your sorrows far away. But in the interview with Ross Gay, he talks about how his understanding of joy can't be taken apart from sorrow. For him, joy is about connection, what he calls entanglement. And that practices of entanglement often come because of sorrow. Joy, he says, is giving and receiving care, collaborating. It's making meaning. But what my silly little song gets right is that singing together, oh, be joyful, oh, be jubilant, sing together this happy day. Because singing together is a cause for joy. It feels good to have a few more voices in the room this morning. That is a delight to me. And singing together and having had that practice of singing with others through my life has been a source of joy. I think the way that we make music together is joy making, especially when our voices are raised with others. Yesterday afternoon, a few of us, Lene and the Smith Dirksons and I and many others from our Mennonite community and friends and our Christians for a Free Palestine, who were the ones who organized this, we stood outside of Westlake Center, sometimes in the rain, but we raised our voices in joy, a joy-filled experience that was deeply rooted in grief. Grief and a conviction for ceasefire in Gaza as we change the words of familiar carols to reflect our outrage and our sadness and calling our communities and our government to accountability. And when I was asked to contribute a quote for the press release, this is what I wrote. Singing is a central part of my Christian tradition. Especially in this time, we follow the example of Mary, who when she learned she would become the mother of Jesus, proclaimed in revolutionary song that tyrants would fall from their thrones, that the oppressed would be freed. Our carols are both a celebration of Jesus' birth and a call for others to follow Jesus' example of peace. We just heard Jacob read those revolutionary words that Mary sang. Luke's gospel records Mary's singing that she will rejoice in God, who scatters the arrogant, who feeds the hungry, who sends the rich away empty. But Mary's song is echoing the prophet's songs before her, including Isaiah that Catherine read with us this morning. You might have even noticed that they sounded a little bit similar. Rejoicing and joy paired against the juxtaposition of suffering and freedom from oppression. When Isaiah was writing, his people were returning from exile. Isaiah is a long book, by the way, and it spans the whole experience of the people going into exile and then returning from exile. And so some of his disciples, some of the actual Isaiah's disciples are probably the ones writing this at this point. So that's just like, that's your footnote. But they're in a time when they have returned from exile. They are rebuilding their community, their systems, their buildings. They're shaking off generations of suffering and looking towards something new. And as I read especially Isaiah's lines about prisoners being released and captives going free, I was thinking of the images of Syrian people right now. And in particular, that notorious prison of Assad's, where he kept and tortured political dissidents, and how the prison doors are just flung open and people are finding release. And just this morning, you know, an American who was in prison was found like wandering barefoot, looking for community. And so like the reunification of families, of people who had told truths and been punished for it, are finally finding home and finding, restoration. And it's beautiful that the doors of the prison are being burst. And at the same time, the rejoicing people of Syria they're in somewhat of the same position as Isaiah's listeners. Isaiah's reading ends, as the earth puts out its growth and as a garden grows its seeds, so the Lord God will grow righteousness and praise before the nations. Syrians are right at the beginning right now. They're starting something new and liberating that could grow from the seeds and roots that have been dormant for a long time. Their future's not yet written. And so, like, together as their global neighbors, we really hope that something good and beautiful will grow. Joy will be essential for them as a people. It's essential for anyone who's facing a hard challenge or rebuilding or in a space of resistance. Because tyranny delights in separation. Tyranny delights in isolation and fear, and it is not joyful. So joy is an essential part of resisting it. Black activists in the United States have known this for years, centuries even, have known that joy is integral to liberating movements. Cleaver Cruz, who's the founder of the Black Joy Project, says, Black joy is not dismissing or creating an alternate Black narrative that ignores the realities of our collective pain. Rather, it is about holding the pain and injustice in tension with the joy that we experience. It's about using that joy as an entry into understanding the oppressive forces that we navigate, as a means to imagine and create a world free of them. Joy imagines a world free of oppressive forces. That same article in which Cleaver Cruz is quoted also talks about the whole history before that. So that was in an article on the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture website. All of these links will be in my sermon post on the website this week. So I'm making lots of references, but you can link to them later. That same article says this: enslaved Africans understood that they were not free, and yet they believed and knew that there were generations coming after them that would be free. That kind of empowering Black joy gave them the will to hold on and press forward no matter what situations confronted them. When Mary sings her song of liberation, when Mary rejoices, she does not know what Jesus will become. She does not know who he will be or how this liberation will happen. She does not know how God will work with her and with her people. And yet she sings a song of liberation. She sings a song of trust in a God who does great things, a God who binds up the brokenhearted, who releases the captives. And she immediately reinforces her connection with her community by rushing off to see Elizabeth, to be together with another person in this experience. Our movements for liberation really will need the words of Mary and of Isaiah and of our other prophets. We need joy for sustenance. That is why I went to Westlake to sing with other people yesterday. Because all of our movement can't just be about anger and rage, because that is not sustaining. It can't be about disappointment and sadness and sorrow. Joy is what will sustain us, in the same way as I talked about hope being a practice a few weeks ago. It's why I work with other people in my neighborhood on collectively fundraising for our schools in South Seattle. It's why I love a potluck. Ross Gay affirms potlucks build our entanglement with each other. They are a practice of joy. We will all need, in the same way that we practice hope and that we look for and practice experiences that sustain us, we will need joy in the coming years. And so I want to ask again, you can say the same thing if you want to. Where and how are you experiencing joy? And what does that mean for you in this time? Please pray with me. May the God who brings tyrants down from their thrones, who fills the hungry with good things, and who binds up the brokenhearted, clothe us each in a robe of righteousness and joy that we will wear now and for years to come. Amen.